Hello everyone out there, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing with you another what I eat in a week. Today's video is a dinner edition. I did a breakfast edition a couple of months ago and you guys really wanted to see a dinner version of this. So I'm excited to share with you some more recipes, some recipe inspiration for you. I will be sharing with you 5 dinner recipes today, and the reason why I'm not sharing a full 7 days worth of dinner recipes is because I do not cook dinner 7 days a week. We always leave at least 1 to 2 days a week to order in from some of our favorite restaurants. So we, certainly like to leave some wiggle room for that. And also we do often eat leftovers a lot of times for dinner, but so that I'm not showing repeated meals in this video, I will be sharing 5 totally different recipes. I will leave links to some of the recipes in this video down below in the description box if you want to check them out and make them yourself. And let's get into it. So the first dinner recipe that I have for you here is almond crusted chicken with a mushroom and broccoli risotto. And I'm just starting here by making the almond crusted chicken, and I do this by adding some almonds to my little food processor with some garlic powder, salt, pepper, paprika, and I just grind them until you don't want them like a powder, but you don't want them too big of chunks. So you just kind of sort of roughly grind them up. So I'll be using that to dip my chicken breasts in, and I'm just adding an egg to a bowl, giving that a whisk so that I can coat the chicken with first. And you can actually use this exact same almond crust for making chicken nuggets if you want to. You can just slice up the chicken breast into strips first, but tonight I am doing whole chicken breasts. And then I'm gonna get started on my risotto while the chicken is cooking. And this is so easy to make and it's really flavorful. So I'm just starting by sauteing up some garlic, and then I'm gonna add in my chopped cremini mushrooms into the pot, let those cook up a little bit, and then I'm gonna add in my rice. So I have some long grain and wild rice here, and then I'm mixing that with some chicken broth. And because I'm using a long grain rice that's not quite as starchy, you wanna stir it continuously while adding the liquid in kind of in increments. So let it absorb the liquid, then add a little bit more. So once that's mostly cooked, I'm gonna add in my broccoli just to let that cook up for the remaining 10 minutes or so while the rice continues to soften. And then finally I'm gonna add in some freshly grated Parmesan cheese and then give that a stir, and it is so tasty. It just all comes together really beautifully and really, really flavorful. So there you have it, almond crusted chicken with a mushroom and broccoli risotto. The next dinner recipe that I have here is a really simple vegetarian chili. I love one-pot meals because they're just so easy. You can just plop some ingredients into a pot, let them cook up, and this chili doesn't take very long, probably 30 to 45 minutes. And I'm just starting by chopping up some carrots and some bell peppers. You can honestly use whatever veggies you have in your fridge. This is a great recipe for just kind of using up some veggies. You could do zucchini, you could do mushrooms, you could do celery as well. So once that has started to soften a little bit, the carrots and the bell peppers and garlic, I'm gonna add in my spices. I have chili powder, oregano, cumin, a little bit of smoked paprika, and just let that cook up a little bit for another minute or so. And then I'm gonna add in my diced tomatoes, some tomato paste, and I have a bean medley. So it's, kidney beans and a couple different types of beans for this chili. And then I'm adding in some veggie broth. You could also use water and a veggie bouillon cube if you wanted to. And then lastly, I'm just gonna throw in a big handful of some baby spinach and kale just to give it some greens. And once that's cooked down for about half an hour or so, what you want to do to kind of finish it off is to take some of it and blend it up. Not very much, maybe just about a cup. You could also use an immersion blender, and then pour that back in, and it just helps to give it this thick kind of like texture to it that is really, really nice, that just finishes it nicely. And I also like to add a squeeze of lime juice in at the end as well. So there you go. You can top this with some cilantro, some avocado, some cheddar cheese, or some sour cream if you want to, however you want to enjoy it. All right, the next dinner recipe that I have for you here is a sourdough skillet. So some of you might know that I have had a sourdough starter for several months now, and this is one of my favorite ways to use my starter is by making this recipe. It's kind of like a meat pie or a veggie pie. There's so many different ways that you can make this in terms of the fillings, but one of my favorite ways to do this is with ground turkey, and then I'm doing some zucchini, carrots, and mushrooms, and garlic as well. And let that cook down with a few different herbs. I really like to use rosemary and thyme and some salt and pepper. And while that is cooking, I'm going to make the sourdough topping. So I have my sourdough starter here that I just mix in a bowl with egg and baking powder and a little bit of coconut oil or some butter and some salt and pepper, and you just give it a really good mix. And then you'll see that when you add in the baking powder, it starts to rise up and froth up. And once that is all combined, you just pour it on top of the mixture, and then you bake it in the oven for about 30 minutes or so. And while that is baking, I'm just mixing up a little kale salad here. Sometimes we like to just buy like a mixture from the grocery store that's kind of ready to go. It's a little bit easier just when we want something quick, like a quick salad to go with dinner. So that's what we're having tonight, just a little kale and cabbage salad to go with our sourdough skillet. And that is it. I do have a whole recipe on my blog of how to get started with making a sourdough starter if that's something that you want to try. I'll leave it linked below. The next dinner recipe that I have here is a beef stew, especially in the winter. I love a hearty stew, whether it's a chicken stew or any other kind of veggie soup or something like that. So I'm just starting by seasoning my stewing beef, and I'm just adding a little bit of flour to it. And then I'm gonna add that to my pot with some sauteed garlic. And then I'm just chopping up my veggies. So I've got carrots, some turnip, and some potato as well. I also add some peas in at the end. So before I add the veggies into the pot, I'm just giving the beef mixture a good scrape at the bottom of the pot to pull up some of the flavors that got cooked in there. And then I'm adding in my beef broth, and then all the veggies and my herbs. I've got some thyme and some rosemary. I love these herbs very much, some parsley as well. And I'm just gonna let that cook for a couple of hours. Now some stews take, you could do a stew in a slow cooker for, all day, but this one's nice because it just takes, a couple of hours, and that's usually good to go. Then I'm adding my peas at the very end, and then I'm also gonna thicken it at the very end with a mixture of water, and you could do cornstarch or arrowroot starch, and then it thickens it up really nicely, so it kind of makes it like a gravy. And there you have it, a delicious beef stew. And the last dinner recipe that I have here is a tomato basil pasta with some salmon that we're having on the side. And this pasta is one of our favorites. It's really easy to do. So I'm just chopping up my garlic. You want lots and lots of garlic for this recipe. And I'm gonna saute that up in a pan. And then while that is sauteing quickly, I'm just gonna throw my salmon into the oven. I've got some salt, pepper, some lemon juice on top, keeping it pretty simple. And once the garlic is done here, I'm putting in some whole baby tomatoes into the pan. Once the tomatoes cook down, I'm just giving them a little poke to make sure that they kind of wilt a little bit more. You want to add basil, and not just a little bit of basil, but a lot of fresh basil. This is such a key to this recipe, is lots of garlic, lots of basil, but honestly it's so simple. That's pretty much the only ingredients that you need. And then I am just adding my noodles that I have strained. And that's it, just tomatoes, basil, lots of garlic, some salt and pepper. If you want, you could grate some Parmesan cheese on top, or some feta cheese would be great. And we're just serving that with some salmon on the side, and that's it. It's such an easy pasta recipe that we love, and I hope you guys give it a try because it's really good. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, links to some of these recipes can be found in the description box below, and let me know which one of these you think that you might want to try yourself. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you all in the next one.